Congratulations to all. Glory to Ukraine. Mr. Minister, dear guests, I am very glad to see you. Thank you for your presence, dear Ukrainian officials. Yesterday, almost all of you have been to Zaporizhzhia, saw what needs there are, what is the situation, a very difficult situation in the frontline regions of our country. Today, another strike of Shaheds and other enemy missile assets came to Kyiv. Our other cities, our Ukrainian communities from Kharkiv to Frankivska were also targeted. That is, you don't just know. You felt it. Which are the tasks of Ukrainian modern diplomacy? And this is an even greater effort to protect the lives of our people, even more interaction with our partners. The Russians are looking for resources for further war, of course. And, in particular, for this and next year. Much has been done to limit them in resources, much has been done to limit them in potential. This is thanks to our soldiers, and thanks to diplomacy, the whole state, our people. But more is needed. More. The main task of Ukrainian diplomacy is to promote everything that protects Ukrainian life in Ukraine first and foremost, and everything that hurts Russia for this war. And each of you must be specific in your own results for the sake of our people, for the sake of Ukraine. This is not pathos, it is true. I believe that this is the main goal. The first is weapons. Of course, we will not publicly discuss the details in each area now, but each of you knows what is in your countries, what are the opportunities for cooperation between joint productions. We now have a truly global cooperation, the largest ever built for Ukraine. But this does not mean that we can stop expanding the activity, we should always look for a new format. There was a time when the Gdansk model and also the Czech artillery initiative became a real breakthrough. Much has been done for the development of these models, and a lot has also been done for the development of our domestic aviation. By the way, this is not only, the F-16, but also the French Mirages are used very effectively. We thank France for this partnership, we thank President Macron and warm congratulations to him from me, from Ukraine, Mr. Minister. And I also wanted to thank, by the way, our ambassador to France. Thank you, Vadim. We must continue to develop everything that gives strength to Ukraine. Now the key thing is drones, all types of drones. We have a significant funding deficit, it exists, this is a fact. We are at all levels, this is relative to the countries directly, and joint formats are such a priority as Ramstein and the Coalition of the Willing. Everywhere we are looking for additional funding. At the level of embassies, it is necessary to support as much as possible. You also have to be active politically, media, to be honest, whatever you want. Questions about air defense for Ukraine. The world needs to know what is happening because of these shameful Russian strikes, how exactly life can be protected here. This should be the work of not only Kyiv, but also all our embassies, all our representatives of your host country should hear and support you. We need this result. Secondly, Russian assets must work to protect against Russian aggression. Yesterday, by the way, I had a report by the head of Naftogaz of Ukraine. Naftogaz has won arbitrations against Russia and against Gazprom. The total amount is already about $6.9 billion. It would be tangible now if we could direct such a large amount of money to our defense. We need to be creative, we need to be convincing in translating the already won decisions for Ukraine into a concrete reality of the financial plane. Naftogaz and its legal team are working to recover funds from Russia and its affiliates. We need to support them in this. Please contact the head of Naftogaz through the Minister of Foreign Affairs if your country has the appropriate capacity to enforce arbitral awards. In general, this should be one of your main tasks. To defend the need for Russia to pay in full for what it is doing against Ukraine. This applies, in particular, to sanctions. We in Ukraine have begun work on synchronizing sanctions. We apply partner sanctions in our jurisdiction. Accordingly, Ukrainian sanctions should be extended to the jurisdictions of our partners. This, I know, is not easy but necessary. This is the responsibility of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine together with the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. I also ask you to pay attention to the synchronization of sanctions of some partners in the jurisdictions of others. Currently, not all packages of European Union sanctions are synchronized even in European countries that are not members of the European Union. This needs to be corrected to promote the strengthening of sanctions against Russia as much as possible. Particular attention is paid to the sanctions track relative to the United States of America. After the change of administration, there was a transformation of content in relation to America. But the purpose of our cooperation with the United States remains the same. We must stand under Russian strikes. This is important not only for our region and Europe. By protecting Ukraine from a greater foundation for global security and preventing any wars, including in the Pacific, it is necessary to establish such a link. I also want to thank Ambassador Oksana Markarova for her work in Washington. Thank you, Oksana, I see you. The years were very difficult, very difficult. But they are effective, a lot has been achieved. Thank you, Oksana. Now the American direction is for Olga Stefanishina. And I wish her success. There will be no less difficulties. We have specific agreements with the President of the United States of America on PPU, on Ukrainian drones, for America on economic cooperation and investment. We have to implement all this. And this is a challenge to implement. The role of the embassy should be significant. It is also necessary to put pressure within the framework of Group 7 so that there are sanction steps in America, Europe, and Japan. The entire legal architecture must also work to hold Russia accountable for this war. There is work to record and investigate Russian war crimes. There is our work at the level of the International Criminal Court. There is our new agreement on the creation of a special tribunal for Russia's aggression against Ukraine. And I also wanted to thank the team for this work. Thanks. More clarity is needed and specific deadlines are needed, in particular on the creation of the tribunal. And we talked about it with Andriy this morning. I instruct Andriy Sybiza, the minister, to prepare a real list of steps that must be taken and when it is possible to launch the tribunal. To be honest, I would not like the Ukrainian people to wait for this launch for decades. Next, in addition to the traditional relations in Europe at the level of the European Union and NATO, which are currently filled with content the most since Ukraine's independence, we have created some special formats. In particular, this is the format of relations between Ukraine, the Nordic countries, also the Ukraine format, the countries of Southeast Europe, the Ukraine-Romania-Moldova format, the format of the Lublin Triangle, our special relations with Turkey, as well as our Crimean platform. Each of these formats requires a constant feeling that there is more content in the work. Indeed, there is potential for this. I ask you to more actively offer ideas on how to ensure the results. Regarding the European Union, this year, our government must ensure readiness for all negotiation clusters. It will be, I believe in you. We understand that the slowdown in the process of Ukraine's accession is not due to Ukraine. And here is a fact, and for this I would like to thank the team and you personally, dear Mrs. Olya Stefanishina. Thank you for the result. We will continue to work with the EU to ensure that the EU delivers on what has been promised. And this is also part of your duties, those ambassadors who work in the European Union as well as in countries that have influence on the European Union. If someone harms Ukraine's interests and undermines global trust in the EU, they must feel the consequences. Taras Kachka will now be responsible for the European Integration Direction, together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Greetings. There will also be some other changes in the European direction, probably personnel changes, but all this is a little later. NATO remains the strongest in Europe and, probably, the world's most potentially effective security architecture. Of course, for everyone, and we understand this, integration with NATO continues at the working level. And we must also take all available steps at the political level. I ask you to continue to maintain this position in working with partners, and it is NATO that is the guarantee of peace in Europe, the cheapest and most effective guarantee. Russia talks a lot about the approach of NATO, but exactly where NATO has approached, there are already decades of peace. It is precisely where NATO seeks peace that it is in short supply. I also ask you not to slow down your activity in the implementation of our bilateral security agreements. They are important, there is a serious result. There are 28 such agreements, each of which must be implemented. This applies, in particular, to financial obligations in transactions. We must also be active in other regions of the world, and the basis for diplomacy must be economic where it really works, and value-based where it works. The countries of Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Arab world, the countries of the Pacific, I have already mentioned this today, the region, everywhere there is and should be Ukrainian interest. Economic, first of all, political and security. We must build our positions strategically now. After this war, Ukraine will be a 100% exporter of security, and now our partners should accept Ukraine accordingly. The fourth priority is that we need more dynamics in negotiations to end the war. This is a difficult direction, and we all understand that truly effective negotiations can only be at the level of leaders. Now our representatives are preparing at least one more exchange with Russia, and Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Rustem Umerov proposed to the Russian side to hold a new meeting of representatives in Turkey. The agenda of the meeting is clear to us. The return of prisoners, the return of children who were displaced by Russia, and the preparation of a meeting of leaders. I ask you to inform your host countries about the need for just such a negotiation approach, such an agenda, and to provide Ukraine with the necessary political support. And fifth, our embassies, our consulates should assist Ukrainian citizens, Ukrainian communities. Ukrainians are already a global community. There are certain differences between waves of migration, of course. There are different needs in different geographies, but the meaning is the same. We must keep all our people connected with Ukraine. In particular, a law on multiple citizenship was recently adopted for this purpose. And we are starting to implement it. This is both a task and this, I believe, is a very serious historical result. Gradually, we will determine the range of countries with which the relevant procedures will be opened. I was thinking of starting with the countries where the most Ukrainians are now. First of all, countries such as Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, and the Baltic States. And then there will be appropriate consultations with the Prime Minister of Ukraine, with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and with Mr. Speaker. I think we will hold all these consultations and the list of countries will be ready. Of course, there we must continue to think about Canada and other countries where there are many Ukrainians and where Ukraine is strongly supported. This is also an important aspect that countries are traditionally with us, traditionally supported us, are warm to Ukrainians and very warm and important for Ukraine. And I ask you to contact directly with our government officials, education, social things, economy, everything that is needed for our people in your countries of work and can be provided. Everything that can be provided must be provided. The Embassy of Ukraine, the consulates of Ukraine should really be centers of activity for the sake of Ukraine, and we also talked about this in detail today with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we will also demonstrate a new approach to consulates in other countries. Thank you to all of you who are here today. Thank you to all of you who work this way for the results, for a free, strong, independent Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Thanks.